What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Mr. Place, and today I'm doing an updated tier list from January and doing it for February 2021. Roll the intro. So guys, I did a tier list in January where I ranked all the champions in the game. Now since I have my set tier list, I'm going to be making some modifications, partly based on what you said, partly based on what I've realized. And so let's get right into it. So first of all, I changed the names of the tiers. So still we have cheat code, overpowered, beyond God, and then we have God, and then I just changed to good, average, bad, terrible, and meme. Because I feel like these aren't like okay champions, they're just not that good. But I'm really excited for the Black Panther buff and the Miles Morales buff that are coming really soon. Really excited for those. But first of all, I realized I made a terrible mistake. I put Moon Knight in average. This guy is a meme. I don't know why I put him there. I would just do something wrong. But yeah, Moon Knight, he's a meme. And so, also some modifications. I think I put Killmonger in the wrong spot. Let's see, where is this guy? Let's see, where are you? Killmonger. Where the heck did this guy go? He is... Was he an average? I think it was an average. He's in here somewhere. There he is. I'll put him in good. I just think he's a really good defender, also with the reverberation. He's just a good champion. I like him a lot. And so I don't think I'm making... Actually, I'll put Red Goblin in good also. He's pretty tanky once you ramp him up. He has some nice utility, so that's great. And... So, I think that's all the adjustments I'm going to make now, and if you think I should make even more adjustments, you should tell me right in the comment section below what I did wrong. I know a lot of people have been telling me about Apocalypse. I still haven't seen enough. I'm keeping Beyond God, but in maybe a month or two, if I see enough insane gameplay, I might move him up to overpowered. So, first new champion I'm going to talk about is Strife. Strife, so he's been referred to as a mutant Aegon, and what I'm going to do with this guy is I've been debating Beyond God or Overpowered. Beyond God, Overpowered. I'm going to put him in Overpowered. This guy is such an amazing champion. He's sort of a ramp-up champion where he gets these things called telepathic charges, and you get them from being struck by a critical hit. You get them when you miss or the opponent misses, and every single telepathic charge you have, for a 6-star rank 3, you get 89 more attack, so about 90 attack. And you can get these things, each fight you can only get them up to 20, but the big thing with him is with your special 3, you can convert some of those telepathic charges into your persistent combo, and then you can get those up to 100. So that can be plus 9,000 more attack. So that's just amazing. And so, and you can also get the 20 within a fight. You can also get his telepathic charges quicker with different synergies. And also, if he's the Horseman of Apocalypse, he can go unblockable once he gets to 20 charges, just permanently, sort of like Nick Fury's ability right here. Sort of like that, but it's just an amazing thing to be permanently unblockable. And his telepathic charges, they also have some really nice safety nets, which is nice. And he's just a great overall champion. He also has these psionic blasts, and so his medium, heavies, and special 2s deal energy damage and can't be evaded. And they reduce the potency of incoming passive direct damage by 100%. So if you just do tons of mediums and you can spam heavies, he's such a great champion. He can bypass so many different things that are so annoying. Bypasses like annoying evade champions. And on his 4th light attack, you can consume a telepathic charge and change that into a concussion, which is nice, but the thing is, what you want to really do is, off his heavies, you can gain 3 telepathic charge if you're invisible, so you can go invisible by throwing the special 1. The special 1 will also do a passive, non-stacking passive shock, which you can refresh with each psionic blast. So every single medium or heavy attack will refresh that shock, and you can just keep that, throw one special 1 and keep that shock active the entire fight, which is so amazing. And also special 1 will make you invisible, so you can have them attack into you a few times, and then you can just throw the heavy, get 3 telepathic charges, which is really nice. And then off his special 2, this is the one that does the big damage. The first and final 2 hits are psionic blasts, so they'll do extra burst energy damage. And it has 80% potency if the opponent is shocked, which you should try and keep up as much. So that's really good. And so those psionic blasts gain 179 more attack rating per telepathic charge. And again, you can get this up to 10 to 100 telepathic charges. That's almost 18,000 more attack on top of the 9,000 you had before. That's just some crazy attack. And if these things crit, just forget about it. These things are just absolutely crazy. And so Strife, he's such a great champion. He doesn't need synergies, but they help him so much. He does so much work in things like the Abyss and stuff like Labyrinth of Legends. Just so many long quests that you want to ramp a guy up in. And he can solo so many people. It's just so amazing. Strife, overpowered champion. Okay, guys, so now on to the next new champion we got in January, and that is Jubilee right here. She's actually a really nice new mutant champion. She gets a little overshadowed by some of the better mutant champions in the game, but the thing is, she's still a great champion. I'm going to put her in God. Her thing is, it's sort of like the newly buffed Gambit, or sort of like Sunspot, where if you can crit that special too, it does some crazy damage. She also has this nice firework mechanic, where if you have orange, you do 55% of your damage as energy damage, and then pink they'll have less defensive power, combat power rate, so they get less power, which is really nice. And blue, they'll get half less defensive ability accuracy, and she's just a really fun champion to play. She looks like her animations are so nice, her specials are really fun, and when charging her heavy and her fireworks surge is active, you'll remove that surge, so in case you want to get rid of it. And so her specials will each do different things depending on whatever firework surge you have active. Orange will inflict shock, pink will inflict taunt, and then blue will inflict a slow, which is really nice. Sort of like She-Hulk's abilities against those unstoppable champions who are really annoying, and also some evade champions. So that's really nice. And then her special 2, her orange will inflict Incinerate, which does tons of damage over some time. Her pink will inflict Suppression, which does their defense and power rate by 25%, so even more or less power. And then the blue will inflict Concussion, but the main thing with the special 2 is, what you want to do is you want to rotate her, get her to her special 2, and just hope if that thing crits, then you do some crazy damage. She also, her awakened ability isn't needed, but each time one of the debuffs expires, she'll deal some extra damage, and each time the opponent purifies debuff, you'll deal extra damage. So whenever debuffs expire or get purified, you'll do extra damage. And she also has this thing called Mutation, which is always active, and her plasmoids, will cause her basic attacks deal energy damage instead of physical. So it's sort of like Dr. Doom's thing, where if there's people with very high physical resistance or nodes, she can completely bypass those. And she also has some extra energy resistance, which is really nice. So yeah, Jubilee, she's just such a great champion, so much fun. She's not at the same level as some of the other mutants in there, but she's still a great champion to get. God tier champion, Jubilee, so much fun. Now let's go on to the buffs. Okay guys, so this month we got 4 buffs to champions, and they actually are really nice. I'm really liking them. So first off, we have the Yellowjacket buff. So Yellowjacket, he didn't get the greatest buff, but it's still pretty good. So Yellowjacket, I'm going to put him in God with Jubilee. His damage wasn't increased that much. That's the only thing that's sort of holding him back. But the thing is, off his special 2, you can inflict his special 2 will do a 100% chance to inflict a Petrify debuff for 15 seconds, which reduces their power gain and regen by like 50%. So that's a really nice Petrify debuff. Especially if you also have the Despair Mastery going, you can reverse that healing, and it's a really nice Petrify debuff that can really reverse some healing, or at least shorten it, especially if you're going against like a Realm of Legends Wolverine, or anything like that. And then, against Mystic opponents, personal debuffs trigger when the attack is launched instead of on hit, and they're pause for the duration of attacks, so you just don't want to bring Mystic champions against him, which makes him a bit more of an annoying defender. And then off his special 1, they will inflict, again, the power stings, but they're still around the same amount of damage as before. So I thought he was going to get like absolutely crazy damage off the power stings because of what they did with Spider-Ham, but they went for the Petrify, which is, I don't know, people will talk about that. And then he also has this new thing called Nuclear Core, and so he'll start at 40 charges, and the overheat point is at 100+, and we'll go over what happens at overheat. but each charge increases the potency of personal debuffs by 1%. So if you're in the meltdown and the debuffs, and you do the petrify debuff, and then that's at 100% charge, 100 charges, that's 150% healing reduction, so that's a 50% reversal. So that, and also their regen rate again by 1%. And then when either champion lands a hit, you get a charge. So if you get to 50 hits then you'll get those. And then when the opponent launches but he only has a 60% chance on each hit. So but the main way to get your charges is through when the opponent launches a special. So you want to be baiting out a lot of specials. You have a 100% chance of getting 10 charges. So that's how you get the bulk of the charges. And then when a charge is gained above the overheat point, so over 100, there's a chance that you'll enter meltdown for 12 seconds. And then your chance increases with the charge. And while meltdown is active, any contact with the opponent has a 75% chance to inflict a burst of some extra physical damage on them. And when the meltdown ends, it will reset to starting point. So the thing is, you want to get his charges up really high. If you're fighting a champion that heals a lot, especially if you're going against Realm of Legends Wolverine, you want to get your charges high, about try to get 75, 90 something. Throw the special 2, petrify that Wolverine, have him just absolutely go crazy. And then incoming unblockable specials. So each hit has a 100% chance to spend 10 nuclear core charge and reduces their attack range by 75%. So that could be good against people who have unblockable specials, which is really annoying. So that means you'll lose 10 charges, but those aren't that hard to gain back. And they'll do 75% less damage. So if they're going to do 10,000 on the hit, they'll only do 2,500 on you, which is a really nice safety net for him. So what they did with him is they did some nice stuff. They gave him a bit more utility, but they didn't do anything crazy that would put him beyond God or overpowered or anything like that. But Yellowjacket is still great. I like the buff. Not the greatest, but still great improvement to him. Terrax buff. And so Terrax kept all of his mechanics and core mechanics the same, but they just made everything a good amount better. So I'm gonna also put him in God. I haven't seen a ton of gameplay with this guy yet, the new buff version, but what I've seen, he looks really, really good. So he's got that whole rock field thing, and they just made it do even more damage. They made his armor breaks. You'll refresh them, and you can get up to 10 armor breaks. And his fourth light will refresh the duration of those armor breaks, and the armor breaks do even more armor. They lessen the armor even more. And Terrax, he always was just a very different champion to play, very interesting. And so his specials cost 100% less power, but after each special, his power bar drains so he reaches 0, and during that time he cannot use specials, and his rock field is active. And he loses power faster as long as rock field has been active. And so his main thing with his rock field is he gains an extra 4,500 attack rating for 6-star rating 3. And while the rock field is active, the opponents close to him, sort of like Omega Red, will take a good amount of energy damage for every second the rock field has been active, every half second. And this will scale with his base attack. And every half second, there's a 35% chance to inflict an armor break debuff. So every 2 seconds, you're pretty much getting an armor break debuff, which will reduce their armor rating. And he's more, for defensive, he's more aggressive when the rock field is active. And so he's always been a really annoying person to fight, but this just makes him, as a person who's an attacker, so to say, it makes him a lot better. It just boosts his damage up so much higher than it was before. And I'm really glad they did this buff. He was really disappointing when he first came out. But here you go. Terrax buffed God tier. Okay, guys. So the next buff I am going to be talking about is the Mole Man buff. So Mole Man... Oh, restart. So guys, the next buff I'm going to be talking about is the Mole Man buff. So before Mole Man, he was an interesting champion. What people were saying was the skill Corvus. But he just wasn't able to maintain his crits. But now... he can maintain those crits, and it's amazing. I'm putting him beyond God right now, but he could get bumped to overpowered. So his whole thing is he gets these Monster Mass, which can turn into Frenzy. So Monster Mass, every time you're inflicted with the debuff, you'll get a Monster Mass, and each Monster Mass grants about 380 physical resistance, which is really nice, so you take less damage. And so the debuffs that you get will be purified a second after you get them, but you also will get that monster mass. And blocking attacks will grant an unstoppable buff for a little bit less than a second. And so that means you'll be able to immediately counterattack, which is really nice. Well-timed blocks, so parries won't trigger this unstoppable, and this ability will remove a monster mass. But once you get over 5 monster mass, when you activate the unstoppable effect, it will activate what is called Frenzy, and every single hit will be a critical hit. So when he's in once you get over 5 monster mass, and you activate that unstoppable, every single one of this guy's hits, every single hit is going to be a critical hit. That's just amazing. And during his Frenzy, the monster mass can't be removed, but each mass will expire after 2 seconds, and the debuffs won't be purified. And then once the monster mass falls all the way down to 0, he can't be frenzied for 15 seconds. But the main thing is trying to maintain him in that frenzy. But every single time you do a heavy attack, you gain 4 monster mass. And so your monster mass expire every 2 seconds. 1 every 2 seconds. So as long as you throw 1 heavy attack every 8 seconds, you're doing very fine. You will be keeping that monster mass up, keeping the critical hits. It's amazing. And if you're frenzied while doing the heavy, this attack has up to a 2,000 attack rate based off your missing health. His special one is pretty cool. You'll gain 2 monster mass. So this is when you're trying to get up to that 5. It also deflect a nice shock. For the special 2, each hit has 500 extra critical rating. So critical damage rating. And the attack gains up to 3,000 attack based off your missing health. And if you're frenzied, this attack pauses your unstoppable and unstoppable buffs. So if you're unstoppable, it will pause it. And it also is unblockable. And special 3 will gain 10 monster mass and become frenzied. So if you mess up and you go all the way down to 0, you can just throw a special 3 and get 10 monster mass. But this guy, it's so easy to maintain his, and then also on his crits, it has a 100% chance to inflict a bleed debuff, and it will also deal a bit of extra energy, a bit of extra damage as energy damage if they're suffering from shock. And so he also has shock immunity, which is really nice. It's not something too many people have. And while his frenzy is not active and he's below 5 monster mass, he gets true accuracy. So when he's below 5 monster mass and he's not in frenzy, he will have true accuracy, so his hits can't be evaded or auto blocked. But this is absolutely crazy because it's so easy to get to his frenzy mode and so easy to keep it up with the heavies. He actually reminds me a lot of like one of my favorite champions in the game, Captain Marvel movie. With her, you get into her binary ignition, throw heavies to get 3 charges back, and she'll lose charges over time, and her damage goes up. Mole Man, you get into the frenzy mode, you throw heavies to keep the frenzy mode up, and you'll lose the monster mass over time, and there's guaranteed crits. So they're very similar champions. I'm really debating putting him to overpower, but I'm keeping him Beyond God for now, just because he doesn't have any extra critical damage. But he doesn't have too much extra critical damage, but every single hit being a crit is absolutely insane. And also those crits will inflict a shock debuff, which is just crazy. So once you enter his frenzy, he's doing absolute bucket loads of damage, and that is what puts him at Beyond God. Okay, guys, so now for the 4th and final buff that came this month, and that was Kingpin. Kingpin was a meme. Kingpin was a meme, and now you know what I'm doing with this guy? This guy used to be a meme. He's overpowered. Kingpin is such an insane champion now. If you haven't awakened, you can start the fight with 2 to 4 rages, and Kingpin, his whole thing is all about the rages. So he can gain rage, and it's a debuff that doesn't have any effect. So if you're using the willpower mastery, you can just get so much regeneration and healing. Just if you have 5 or 7 rage stacks, you can do so much healing just from the willpower mastery, because now they're debuffs instead of passives. And whenever he gains a non-rage debuff, he has a 60% chance to purify it and gain a rage, which has a cooldown of half a second. But the thing is, if you have either the Hood or Joe Fixit on your team, he has 100% plus 100% rage purify ability accuracy. So every single time you get a debuff, you'll purify it and you'll get another rage. Whenever you take damage, you gain a rage, and whenever they evade or auto block, you'll gain a rage. So those are really nice, and it's a great thing because his thing is when you get 8 plus when he has 8 plus debuffs, so mainly when you get 8 rages, he'll purify all 8 of those debuffs, and it turns into an overpower buff, which lasts 15 seconds, and at 6-star rank 3, that gives him 7,500 extra attack rating, and his specials will be unblockable. So this guy's just doing crazy damage, plus unblockable specials that you can just throw into the guy. And also, he has so much fun heavy attacks. When you're charging your heavy, he has 3,000 physical resistance and gains an unstoppable buff. So you're not taking much damage at all when they hit into you, and you'll just be able to whack into them because you have the unstoppable buff. And if you land 3 heavy attacks within 4 seconds of each other, he has a 100% chance to gain a fury buff, getting 2,500 extra attack rating for 14 seconds. So that's really nice, so you can get even more damage. And his specials are really cool. His special 1 has a blast of black eyes, and that will inflict a degen debuff, which is pretty good damage. But while that degen buff is debuff is active, the opponent suffers 50% less attack rating and 65% less defense ability, actually. So they're still doing even less damage than they were before. His special 2 is really nice. He'll gain an unstoppable buff lasting 7.5 seconds. So that's a lot. That's a long time for a lot of unstoppable right after the special 2. And while it's active, each hit either champion lands has a 50% chance to grant him 1 rage with no cooldown. So you can just throw a special 2, just hit the guy a few times, you'll get a few rages. And if you have the synergies, and you have him awakened and at like max sig, you can go into the fight with, because if he's awakened, you go into the fight with 2 to 4 rages active, and it's just so you can get that really good thing. And then also, when he's awakened, when his overpower buff ends, he has a chance to gain up to 5 rages. Each have 30 to 90% chance to activate. So if you have him at max sig, once that overpower buff ends, you're probably getting 4 to 5 rages immediately after that. So if you have him awakened and you go into the fight with the right synergy team, you can start off with 7 rages just the second the fight starts, and all you have to do is find a way to get 1 more rage, either having a debuff come in, just take a bit of damage, or if someone evades or whatever, and then you can get into that overpower mode. And he's just all of the stuff that he does that reduces their damage is so amazing. He's such a sustainable character with great damage output now. Kingpin, he used to be terrible. They buffed him, and now he's an absolutely amazing champion. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and also make sure to follow us on Twitter at MrPlays9 and Instagram at MrPlaysGaming. And if you want more content like this, please consider subscribing with notifications on so you don't miss any new content. And until next time, peace!